Welcome to Lotus Light Teachings, a space where timeless wisdom meets modern challenges. Have you ever found yourself bending over backward to keep everyone happy, only to feel drained, unappreciated, or even lost? It's natural to seek approval. We all want to be liked. But what if I told you that this very habit might be quietly sabotaging your inner peace? Today, we're diving deep into the illusion of approval, why people-pleasing can hold you back, and how Buddhist wisdom can help you reclaim your authenticity. This isn't just about breaking a habit, it's about rediscovering who you truly are. Stay with me until the end, because I promise what we uncover today could change the way you see yourself and the world forever. Let's begin. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine you're holding a glass of water. At first, it's light. You barely feel its weight. But what if you had to hold it for an hour, a day, a year? This is what people-pleasing does to you. At first, it seems harmless. Saying yes to a favor, agreeing with opinions you don't truly hold, forcing a smile when you feel exhausted. But over time, the weight of seeking approval from others begins to drain you. You see, our desire to be liked is deeply ingrained in us. From childhood, we're taught that being agreeable makes us good. We're rewarded for obedience, for making others happy, for not rocking the boat. And so, we grow up thinking that in order to be loved, we must always be accommodating. But at what cost? Let's be honest, how many times have you said yes when your heart was screaming no? How often have you sacrificed your own well-being just to avoid disappointing someone? Buddhism teaches that attachment is the root of suffering. And people-pleasing is an attachment to something incredibly fragile: others' opinions. Powerful story. There's an old Buddhist parable of a monk who walked through a village every morning. One day, a man stood in his path and began hurling insults at him. The monk, calm and unfazed, simply smiled. "Why are you smiling?" the man spat. The monk replied, "If someone offers you a gift, but you refuse to take it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man hesitated, confused. The monk continued, "I refuse to accept your anger. It belongs to you, not me." This story teaches us a profound lesson. Just because someone offers you judgment, criticism, or expectations doesn't mean you have to accept them. The need to please everyone is a losing battle. Some people will like you, some won't, and none of it determines your worth. The real question is, do you like yourself? Today, start small. The next time you feel pressured to say yes out of obligation, pause. Ask yourself, does this align with my values? Am I doing this from genuine kindness or out of fear of rejection? If I say no, what's the worst that can happen? True peace doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being authentic. The illusion of approval, breaking free from people-pleasing. I used to think that if I could just be a little more agreeable, a little more accommodating, a little more of what people wanted, I would finally be happy. Maybe you've felt the same. It's strange, isn't it? We spend so much time trying to be what others expect, but in the process, we start to forget who we really are. It's a quiet kind of exhaustion, the kind that doesn't come from doing too much, but from being too much for too many people. You say yes when your heart whispers no. You smile when something doesn't sit right with you. You hold back your thoughts because you don't want to upset anyone. And yet, no matter how much you try, someone is still disappointed. Someone still misunderstands you. Someone still finds a reason to judge. So here's the question. Why do we chase approval that is never guaranteed? The story of the monk and the gift of insults. There's a story I love. Simple, but powerful. A monk was walking through a village when a man, filled with anger, began shouting at him. He called him names, mocked his way of life, and tried to provoke him. But the monk stood there, calm, unshaken, just listening. Finally, the man demanded, "Why aren't you reacting? Why don't you say something?" The monk smiled gently and asked, "If someone offers you a gift, but you refuse to take it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man hesitated. "If I don't accept your anger," the monk continued, "then it remains yours. I do not have to carry it." And with that, he simply walked away. Now, here's the part that really makes me think. How often do we accept the gifts we don't even want? We take on other people's judgments. We carry their expectations like heavy bags over our shoulders. We let one comment ruin our day, one look make us question ourselves. But why? If someone hands you a stone, would you keep it, even if it made your pockets heavy? If someone gives you an old coat, would you wear it, even if it didn't fit? Then why do we wear the opinions of others as if they belong to us? The trap of people-pleasing. I get it. Approval feels good. It's like a warm light that makes us feel seen, valued, accepted. But here's the thing, it never lasts. It's like chasing the horizon. You run, you stretch, you think you're getting closer, but it always stays just out of reach. You please one person and another one is dissatisfied. You meet one expectation and a new one appears. I remember reading about Robin Williams, one of the greatest comedians of our time. He could make the whole world laugh. But do you know what he once said? I used to think the worst thing in life was to end up alone. It's not. The worst thing in life is to end up with people who make you feel alone. That hit me, because people-pleasing isn't just exhausting, it's lonely. You surround yourself with approval, but you're never really seen. You play a role so well that even you start to forget who's behind the mask. So what if just for a moment you stopped running? What if you let go of the need to be liked by everyone and focused on being true to yourself? The courage to say no. I know saying no feels like a betrayal, but have you ever noticed that the people who truly love and respect you don't disappear when you set boundaries? It's the ones who only valued your compliance who start pulling away. And maybe that's a good thing. Think about Steve Jobs. He was known for saying no more than yes. He rejected thousands of ideas to focus on a few great ones. If he had tried to please everyone, we wouldn't have the iPhone, Pixar, or Apple as we know it. Or take Oprah Winfrey. She once said, "You can't please everyone. If you try, you'll lose yourself in the process." They didn't become who they are by chasing approval. They became who they are by standing in their truth. And so can you. A simple practice, the mirror test. If you're someone who struggles with people-pleasing, try this. Tonight, stand in front of a mirror and, did I live today according to my own values? Did I say yes to something I didn't want to? If I had no fear of judgment, what would I have done differently today? No one else is watching. No one else's voice matters in that moment. Just you. What do you see? Because at the end of the day, when all the voices fade, the only person left is you. And the real question isn't whether others approve of you. The real question is, do you approve of yourself? Final thoughts. Living authentically. Look, I won't lie to you. Letting go of people-pleasing isn't easy. There will be moments when it feels uncomfortable, moments when you wonder if you're doing the right thing. But every time you choose truth over approval, you get a little lighter. Every time you say no without guilt, you reclaim a little more of yourself. And every time you decide to live for yourself, not for others, you step closer to real peace. So here's my challenge for you. The next time someone asks you for something that doesn't align with your heart, pause. Take a breath. Listen to your gut. And if your heart says no, have the courage to say it out loud. Because you were never meant to live inside someone else's expectations. You were meant to live free. A question for you. Tonight, before you go to bed, ask yourself, if I could stop worrying about what others think, what would I do differently tomorrow? And then, when tomorrow comes, do it. Because the only approval you truly need is your own. The storm of overthinking and the weight of worry. I used to think that overthinking was just a sign that I was a careful planner, that by thinking about everything deeply, I was somehow preparing myself for every possible outcome. But in reality, it was exhausting. Have you ever had those nights where your mind just won't stop running? You're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations from years ago, analyzing every word, wondering what you should have said differently. Or maybe you're worrying about tomorrow. What if something goes wrong? What if they judge me? What if I fail? The what-ifs never end. And before you know it, you've spent hours in a conversation that never happened, fighting battles that don't exist, and carrying a weight that was never even real. Why do we do this to ourselves? Because we think that if we just think a little more, we'll find certainty. That if we analyze enough, we can control the outcome. That if we prepare for the worst, we won't be caught off guard. But here's the truth no one tells you. Overthinking doesn't prevent tomorrow's problems. It only steals today's peace. The prison of overthinking. There's a reason Buddhism places so much emphasis on the present moment, because the mind, when left unchecked, is a time traveler. It either drags you back into the past, making you relive regrets, or it pushes you forward into the future, making you fear things that haven't even happened. And neither of these places are real. Your past is gone. It exists only as memories in your mind. And your future? It hasn't arrived yet. So why do we spend so much of our lives living in places that don't exist? I once read about Leonardo da Vinci, and you know what fascinated me the most? Despite being one of the greatest minds in history, he was famous for never finishing his work. He had notebooks filled with unfinished ideas, sketches, and inventions. Why? Because his mind never stopped. He would overthink things to the point where he never felt his work was good enough. He second-guessed himself so much that some of his greatest ideas were left incomplete. And that made me wonder, how many of us are holding back on our own greatness because of overthinking? How many dreams have we postponed? How many words have we left unsaid? How many moments have we lost because we were too busy thinking instead of living? The story of the two monks. Why we carry what we don't need. I once heard a story about two monks traveling together. As they walked through a forest, they came across a river where a woman stood, unable to cross. The older monk, without hesitation, picked her up and carried her across to the other side. The younger monk, shocked by this, said nothing. But his mind was racing. Monks were supposed to avoid physical contact, especially with women. Hours passed. Finally, unable to contain himself, the younger monk said, "How could you do that? You broke the rules." The older monk simply smiled and said, "I put her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" And isn't that what we do? We carry things long after they're gone. We replay past mistakes like they're happening all over again. We hold on to past words as if they still have power over us. We cling to future fears as if they are already real. But what if, just like the older monk, we could put it down? What if we could let go of the things we cannot change and free ourselves from the burden of unnecessary thoughts? The mind storm, how overthinking steals our joy. Imagine standing in a quiet field. The air is still, peaceful. Then suddenly the wind starts picking up. Dark clouds roll in. The sky turns gray. That's what overthinking feels like. A storm that starts small but builds quickly. One thought turns into another. A small worry becomes a giant fear. Before you know it, your mind is a hurricane, and you're caught in the middle. But here's the thing about storms. They pass. No storm lasts forever. And just like you don't have to chase the wind, you don't have to chase every thought. You can just watch it pass. Buddhism teaches mindfulness, the art of observing thoughts instead of attaching to them. The next time your mind starts spiraling, try this. Keycap 1, close your eyes. Keycap 2, take a deep breath. Keycap 3, instead of reacting to your thoughts, just watch them like clouds moving across the sky. You are not your thoughts. You are the sky. Vast, open, unshaken. How to break free from overthinking. Breaking free doesn't mean never thinking. It means thinking with purpose. Here's a simple practice. The worry window technique. Set a time limit for worrying. Each day, give yourself 15 minutes to think about whatever is bothering you. Worry as much as you want, overanalyze everything, play out every scenario. But when the timer ends, stop. Redirect your focus to something productive. Over time, your brain learns that worry has a place, but it doesn't have to take over your entire day. Embracing impermanence. Nothing lasts forever. One of the most beautiful teachings in Buddhism is impermanence, anicca. The idea that nothing stays the same. Your worries, they will pass. Your fears, they will fade. Your thoughts, they will come and go. So why hold on so tightly? If life is always changing, why waste time worrying about things that might never happen? A gentle reminder for you. Right now, wherever you are, take a breath. Look around you. Feel the air on your skin. Listen to the sounds around you. This moment. Right now. Is the only thing that is real. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, just this. So the next time you catch yourself lost in a storm of thoughts, ask yourself, is this thought helpful? Can I take action right now? Or am I just carrying something I don't need? Because the truth is that you don't have to carry it anymore. Let it go. Step into the present. And give yourself the freedom to just be. The silent war, overcoming self-doubt and negative self-talk. You know, for the longest time, I thought that confidence was something you were either born with or without. That some people just had it naturally while the rest of us had to struggle with doubt. But over time, I realized something. Self-doubt is not a reflection of your ability. It's a habit of your mind. Think about it. Have you ever hesitated before speaking up in a meeting, afraid that what you say might sound foolish? Have you ever held back from pursuing something you wanted, whether it was a job, a relationship, or a dream, because a voice in your head whispered, "You're not good enough for this"? That voice is familiar, isn't it? It sneaks up on us in moments when we're about to take a step forward, convinces us to stay in our comfort zones, to play it safe, to avoid taking risks. And here's the cruelest part: most of the time, it sounds like our own voice. But let me ask you something. If your inner voice were a person, would you be friends with them? The thief that steals your potential. Self-doubt is a thief. It steals opportunities before they even have a chance to exist. I once read about Vincent van Gogh, a man whose art is celebrated today. But did you know that in his lifetime he only sold a single painting? Just one. Can you imagine what might have happened if he had let his doubts win? If he had listened to the voice that said, "Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I should just stop." The world would have never known his genius. Now think about yourself. How many ideas have you buried because of doubt? How many opportunities have you let pass by? How many times have you convinced yourself that you're not ready, not talented enough, not worthy? But here's the truth. The only thing standing between you and your potential is the story you tell yourself, the story we tell ourselves. Buddhism teaches that our thoughts are like seeds. Whatever we water grows. If we keep feeding our mind with doubt, fear, and self-criticism, those thoughts will take root and shape the way we see ourselves. But if we start planting confidence, resilience, and self-trust, those will grow instead. Now, I know what you're thinking. But how do I change my thoughts? They just come automatically. Yes, they do. But just because a thought appears doesn't mean you have to believe it. The story of the two wolves. There's an old Cherokee story about a grandfather teaching his grandson about life. He said, "Inside every person, there are two wolves. One wolf is full of doubt, fear, and self-criticism. The other wolf is full of confidence, strength, and self-trust." The grandson asked, "Which wolf wins?" The grandfather smiled and said, "The one you feed. Every day you have a choice. Which wolf will you feed? The one that tells you you're not enough? Or the one that reminds you of your worth?" How to break free from self-doubt. I'm not saying self-doubt will disappear overnight. It won't. But here's a simple exercise that can help. The evidence list. Every time you doubt yourself, write down one past victory, and no matter how small. Maybe you once spoke up even though you were scared. Maybe you finished a project when you wanted to quit. Maybe you helped someone, and it made a difference. Keep a list. Add to it every day. And when that voice of doubt creeps in, look at your list and remind yourself, you have already done hard things. You can do them again. The silent enemy, negative self-talk. Let's talk about something even deeper, something we rarely notice but shapes everything about our lives. Negative self-talk. The sneaky. It disguises itself as realism. It pretends to be honest self-reflection. But at its core, it's just another way we hurt ourselves without realizing it. I used to think I was just being humble when I told myself, "Oh, I'm not really that smart," or "I don't think I'm capable of that." But humility is different from self-destruction. Humility says, "I have more to learn." Self-destruction says, "I'm not good enough." Do you see the difference? One allows growth. The other keeps you small. The words we speak to ourselves. Buddhism emphasizes right speech, not just in how we talk to others, but in how we talk to ourselves. Imagine you had a friend who spoke to you the way you speak to yourself. If they constantly said, You're not smart enough. You're not attractive enough. You'll probably fail. Would you keep them in your life? Of course not. So why do we accept this voice in our own heads? Because we've gotten used to it. But just because something feels normal doesn't mean it's right. The experiment that changed everything. There's a famous experiment by Dr. Masaru Emoto, where he took water and spoke different words to it. To one sample, he said loving, kind words. To another, he spoke with anger and negativity. When he froze the water and looked at it under a microscope, the kind words created beautiful, symmetrical crystals, while the negative words formed chaotic, broken shapes. Now, think about this. Our bodies are 60% water. If words can change the structure of water, imagine what they do to us. How to rewire your inner voice. Here's something simple but powerful. The reframe exercise. Every time you catch yourself saying something negative about yourself, pause and reframe it. Instead of, I'm terrible at this, say, I'm still learning. Instead of, I always fail, say, every mistake is a lesson. Instead of, I'm not good enough, say, I am enough as I am. At first, it will feel unnatural, like trying to write with your opposite hand. But over time, changes you, because the more you practice kindness towards yourself, the more you start believing it. Final thoughts. You are more capable than you think. If you take nothing else from this, remember this. You are not your doubts. You are not your fears. You are the one who chooses whether to believe them. So today, start small. Notice the words you speak to yourself. Catch the moments of doubt. Feed the right wolf. Because the moment you decide to change your inner voice, you change everything. Procrastination, the silent dream killer. Have you ever sat down to start something important, only to find yourself scrolling through your phone, cleaning your desk, or suddenly feeling the need to reorganize your entire room? You tell yourself, I'll start in 5 minutes. But somehow, hours slip by, and you haven't even begun. And then comes the guilt. The voice in your head whispers, why do I keep doing this? Why can't I just start? What's wrong with me? Let me tell you something. There's nothing wrong with you. Procrastination isn't laziness. It's fear in disguise. Fear of failure, fear of imperfection, fear of discomfort. We don't procrastinate because we don't care. We procrastinate because we care too much. So much that the idea of starting feels overwhelming. Why we procrastinate? Think about the last time you put something off. Maybe it was a big project, a tough conversation, or a personal goal you've been meaning to work on. At first, it feels harmless. I'll do it tomorrow. But then tomorrow comes and you say the same thing. Days turn into weeks. Weeks turn into months. And before you know it, what once felt urgent now feels impossible. So why do we do this to ourselves? Because starting is the hardest part. We fear that we won't do it well enough, that we'll mess up, that it will take too much effort. So instead of facing that discomfort, we choose temporary relief. Scrolling social media, watching another episode, cleaning something that doesn't even need cleaning. It's not that we don't want to succeed. It's that we're afraid to fail. The fear behind procrastination. There's a story about Michelangelo, the legendary artist who painted the Sistine Chapel. For months, he delayed starting the project. He would sketch ideas, wander the streets of Rome, and make excuses about why he wasn't ready. Why? Because he was terrified of failure. He knew that once he began, there would be no turning back. And the thought of creating something less than perfect made him freeze. But eventually, he forced himself to start. And what happened? He created one of the greatest masterpieces in history. Here's the lesson. Waiting for the perfect moment will kill your dreams. Perfection is an illusion. If Michelangelo had waited until he felt ready, the Sistine Chapel would still be an empty ceiling. How to overcome procrastination. If you've been stuck in the cycle of procrastination, here's a simple truth. You don't need more motivation. You need momentum. Motivation is unreliable. Some days it's there. Most days it's not. But momentum? That's something you can create. 1. The 2-minute rule. If something takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. Answer that email. Make that call. Write that first sentence. Momentum starts with small wins. 2. The ugly first draft trick. Most of the time, we procrastinate because we're afraid of not doing something perfectly. But what if you gave yourself permission to do it badly? Write the terrible first draft. Record the messy version. Start before you feel ready. Once you begin, you can always improve. But you can't edit a blank page. 3. The 5-minute commitment. Tell yourself, I'll just do this for 5 minutes. That's it. No pressure to finish. Just start. Most of the time, you'll keep going. Because starting is the hardest part. 4. Change I have to into I get to. Instead of saying, I have to work on this, say, I get to work on this. Shifting your mindset from obligation to opportunity can make a huge difference. A question to ask yourself. If you weren't afraid of failing, what would you start today? Because the truth is, there's no perfect moment. There's no magical day when you'll feel completely ready. There's only now. So don't wait. Start. Comparison. The thief of joy. Have you ever scrolled through your phone and felt that familiar pang of envy? Maybe you saw someone post about their dream vacation while you were stuck at work. Maybe a friend shared their promotion, and you started questioning your own career choices. Maybe someone you barely know posted a picture-perfect family, and you wondered why your own life didn't feel that flawless. It happens so fast, doesn't it? One moment you're just browsing, and the next you feel smaller, less successful, and somehow behind. Comparison is a thief. It sneaks into your mind and steals your joy before you even realize what's happening. But here's something important to remember. What you see isn't the full story. No one posts their struggles. No one uploads the nights they cried, the failures they faced, the moments of doubt that kept them up at night. Social media is a highlight reel, not real life. And yet, we compare our raw reality to someone else's filtered success. No wonder we feel like we're falling behind. Why do we compare? We all do it. Even the most successful people aren't immune. Buddhism teaches that comparison comes from attachment. Attachment to an idea of where we think we should be, to a version of ourselves we believe would finally be enough. But enough according to whom? Where did we get this invisible timeline? Who decided that by 30 we should have a certain job, a certain amount of money, a certain lifestyle? Who made these rules? Society? Family? Ourselves? And more importantly, do we even agree with them? Comparison is like running a race where everyone is on a different track. You look to your left and see someone sprinting ahead. You look to your right and see someone moving slower. But what you don't realize is you're not even running the same race. Because life isn't a competition. It never was. The price of comparison. There's a story about John Lennon that has always stuck with me. When he was a child, his mother told him, "The key to life is happiness." One day in school, his teacher asked the class, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Lennon wrote, "Happy." The teacher looked at his answer and said, "I don't think you understood the assignment." Lennon replied, "I don't think you understand life." The story is simple, but it's powerful. Because so many of us spend years chasing the wrong things. Comparing, competing, trying to catch up to people who aren't even running the same race. But if you stripped away the expectations, the pressure, the noise, what would you really want? Not what looks good, not what impresses people, but what truly makes you happy. Because if happiness is the goal, then comparison is the enemy. Mudita, the power of sympathetic joy. Buddhism offers a simple but profound solution to comparison. Mudita. Mudita means sympathetic joy. Feeling happiness for someone else's success without feeling like it takes away from your own. Think about it this way. If a candle lights another candle, does it lose its own flame? Of course not. In fact, now there's more light. The same is true for success. Someone else's achievement doesn't mean there's less for you. Their happiness doesn't mean you're failing. Their progress doesn't erase your own. Life isn't a competition. It's a shared journey. When you celebrate others, you free yourself from comparison. You replace jealousy with inspiration. And you remind yourself that their success is proof of what's possible. A different perspective on success. Have you ever heard of Warren Buffett's inner scorecard? Buffett, one of the wealthiest and most successful investors in history, once said that there are two ways to measure success. Keycap 1, the outer scorecard. What the world sees. Money, fame, titles, status. Keycap 2, the inner scorecard. What truly matters to you, your values, your happiness, your integrity. Most people live by the outer scorecard. Constantly trying to impress, to keep up, to be seen as successful. But Buffett, he measures life by his own standards. He once said, "Would you rather be the world's best lover and have everyone think you're the worst? Or be the worst lover but have everyone think you're the best?" The point is clear. Would you rather be happy or just look happy to others? When you stop comparing and start living by your own inner scorecard, everything changes. How to stop comparing and find joy in your own path. 1. Focus on your own journey. Imagine planting a tree. Would you keep digging it up to see if it's growing as fast as your neighbor's tree? Of course not. You'd water it. You'd let it grow at its own pace. Your life is the same. Just because someone else's success is blooming doesn't mean yours won't. Trust your process. 2. Trade comparison for gratitude. Next time you catch yourself comparing, pause. Instead of asking, "Why don't I have that?" ask, "What do I already have?" Gratitude is the antidote to comparison. It shifts your focus from lack to abundance. 3. Celebrate others without feeling less. Try this for a week. Whenever you see someone succeed, instead of feeling jealous, say to yourself, "That's amazing. I'm happy for them. And my time is coming too." It might feel strange at first, but over time it rewires your mindset. 4. Unplug and reset. Sometimes, comparison is simply a result of too much exposure to other people's lives. If social media makes you feel like you're falling behind, take a break. Step away. Live your life instead of constantly watching everyone else's. A question to ask yourself. If social media didn't exist, if you never saw what anyone else was doing, what would success look like to you? Would you still want the same things? Would you still feel behind? Would you still measure yourself the same way? Or would you finally realize you were never behind? You were just on your own path all along. Fear of failure, the illusion that stops growth. Have you ever hesitated before trying something new because you were afraid of failing? Have you ever had an idea, a dream, a goal, that's something that truly excited you, but stopped yourself before you even began? You're not alone. Fear of failure is one of the most powerful illusions that holds people back. It whispers in your ear, "What if you're not good enough? What if you embarrass yourself? What if you try and everything falls apart?" And so, instead of taking the risk, you stay where you are. Safe, comfortable, unchallenged. But here's the truth. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of it. The myth of perfection. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that failure is something to be avoided at all costs. That mistakes mean weakness. That falling short means we aren't capable. But look at any successful person in history, and you'll see a trail of failures behind them. Thomas Edison failed over 10,000 times before inventing the light bulb. When asked how he felt about failing so many times, he said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Imagine if he had stopped at failure number 100, or 1,000, or even 9,999. Michael Jordan, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, missed over 9,000 shots in his career. He lost nearly 300 games. He failed over and over, and yet he is remembered as a legend. The difference between them and most people, they didn't see failure as the end. They saw it as a step forward. The Buddhist wisdom of impermanence. Buddhism teaches the concept of impermanence, the understanding that nothing in life is permanent, including failure. Whatever mistake you made yesterday, it's already gone. Whatever fear you have about tomorrow, it hasn't happened yet. The only thing that's real is this moment, right now, and what you choose to do with it. So why let the fear of something temporary stop you from doing something meaningful? Failure isn't a sign that you should quit. It's simply feedback. It's life saying, adjust your approach and try again. A story of resilience, J.K. Rowling's journey. Before J.K. Rowling became one of the best-selling authors in history, she was a struggling single mother, living in poverty, and rejected by 12 different publishers. Imagine that. 12 times, she sent her manuscript out. 12 times she was told no. She could have given up. She could have decided that maybe writing wasn't for her. But she didn't. And today, Harry Potter is a global phenomenon. The lesson? Failure is just a chapter, not the whole story. Had she stopped trying, the world would have never known Hogwarts, and she would have never stepped into the life she was meant to live. Reframing failure. A simple shift that changes everything. The problem isn't failure itself. It's how we see it. Most people say, "I failed," and that's where the story ends. But what if instead you said, "I learned"? Instead of, crossmark, "I'm terrible at this." Try, white heavy checkmark, "I'm still learning this skill." Instead of, crossmark, "I failed, so I'm not good enough." Try, white heavy checkmark, "That didn't work, but now I know what to do differently." Instead of, crossmark, "I shouldn't even try." Try, white heavy checkmark, "I'll regret never trying more than I'll regret failing." See the difference? One keeps you stuck. The other moves you forward. How to overcome the fear of failure. If you've been letting failure hold you back, here's something to try. 1. Write down your biggest fear. What's the worst thing that could happen if you fail? Be honest. Write it down. Then ask yourself, if this happened, could I survive it? Chances are the answer is yes. Most failures feel huge in our minds, but in reality, you'll recover, learn, and move on. 2. Redefine success. What if success wasn't about getting everything right? What if success was about learning, growing, and showing up even when it's hard? If you're learning, you're already winning. 3. Set a failure goal. Instead of avoiding failure, set a goal to fail more often. Why? Because the more you fail, the more you're trying, improving, and moving forward. Entrepreneur Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, said that her father used to ask her every night at dinner, "What did you fail at today?" If she didn't have an answer, he'd be disappointed. That taught her that failure wasn't something to fear. It was something to embrace. And that mindset made her a billionaire. A final thought. What would you do if you weren't afraid? Close your eyes for a second and imagine this. If failure didn't exist, if you knew, no matter what, you'd be okay, what would you do? Would you start the business? Would you write the book? Would you take the leap? Because the only thing stopping you is the story you're telling yourself. So today, tell yourself a new story. Not "what if I fail," but "what if I fly?" Dwelling on the past. The trap of regret. Have you ever replayed a mistake in your mind over and over again, like a movie you can't turn off? Have you ever lain awake at night thinking about what you should have said, should have done, or shouldn't have let happen? Regret is a heavy burden. Keeps us stuck in a place we can never return to, making us relive moments that no longer exist. And yet, we carry the past like a suitcase full of stones, dragging it with us into every conversation, every opportunity, every new day. But here's a question worth asking. What if we just put it down? The illusion of control over the past. We often act as if we can change the past by thinking about it enough. But the past isn't a problem to be solved. It's a fact. No amount of overthinking will undo a mistake. No amount of guilt will rewrite history. Yet we continue to torture ourselves with what could have been. The job we should have taken. The words we should have said. The relationship we should have fought for, or let go of sooner. But let's be honest. If we could go back, would we really do it differently? Because back then, we didn't have the wisdom we have now. We made decisions based on what we knew at the time. And that's all any of us can do. So why do we expect our past selves to know what only our present selves have learned? The story of the two monks. There's an old Buddhist story that perfectly illustrates this. Two monks were traveling together when they came across a woman standing at the edge of a river. She was afraid to cross. Without hesitation, the older monk lifted her onto his back and carried her across. Hours later, as they walked, the younger monk couldn't hold his silence any longer. "Why did you do that?" he asked. "We're monks. We're not supposed to touch women." The older monk smiled and said, "I put her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her? And isn't that what we do with the past? We hold on to things long after they've ended. We carry pain, regret, and resentment as if holding on to them will somehow change what happened. But the past is only heavy if we refuse to let it go. The Buddhist wisdom of non-attachment. Buddhism teaches the concept of non-attachment, the ability to accept, learn, and move forward without clinging to what no longer serves us. It doesn't mean forgetting the past. It means not letting it define us. We can't rewrite our history, but we can redefine what it means to us. Did you make mistakes? Yes. Did you hurt people or get hurt? Yes. But did you learn from it, grow from it, become wiser because of it? Then it wasn't wasted. And if every experience, good or bad, has shaped who you are today, then maybe even the things you regret had a purpose. The cost of living in the past. Imagine driving a car, but instead of looking forward, you spend the entire time staring at the rearview mirror. How far would you get before you crashed? That's what happens when we live in the past. We miss the opportunities in front of us. We lose the chance to grow, to love, to experience the present fully, because we're too busy looking back. Even the best moments from the past can hold us back if we cling to them. Maybe you keep thinking about the good old days, wishing you could go back to a time when things felt better, simpler. But life isn't meant to be lived in reverse. The best days of your life don't have to be behind you. They can be ahead of you, if you let them. How to let go of the past and move forward. If you've been trapped in regret, here's something to try. 1. Start each morning with a clean slate. Every morning, tell yourself, today is a fresh start. Yesterday is gone. Today, I move forward. Because the truth is, the past only exists if you keep bringing it into the present. 2. Ask yourself, what did I learn? Instead of replaying mistakes, shift your focus. Ask, what did this teach me? Growth turns pain into wisdom, and wisdom makes sure you don't repeat the same mistakes. 3. Forgive yourself and others. Holding on to anger and regret is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to suffer. Forgiveness isn't about saying, what happened was okay. It's about saying, I won't let it control me anymore. Forgive yourself for not knowing better at the time. Forgive others for not being who you wanted them to be. And most importantly, forgive life for not always going the way you planned. 4. Be present, fully and completely. Right now, this moment, is all you ever really have. When your mind drifts back to the past, gently bring it back. I am here. I am now. The past has no power over me unless I give it power. Because the future isn't shaped by what you lost. It's shaped by what you do next. A question to ask yourself. If you weren't carrying the weight of the past, what could you do today? Because the door to the past is closed. And the only way forward is forward. Neglecting your body and mind, the root of burnout. Have you ever felt completely drained, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually? That deep exhaustion where even rest doesn't seem to help, where everything feels like too much. That's burnout, and it doesn't just happen overnight. It creeps in slowly, like a candle burning at both ends, until suddenly there's nothing left. Most of us don't realize we're heading toward burnout until it's too late. We push ourselves harder, believing that if we just work more, give more, do more, then somehow everything will fall into place. But here's the truth. Your mind and body are interconnected. Neglect one and the other suffers. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And yet, how many of us try? The hidden cost of ignoring your well-being. Think about the most successful people in the world. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Oprah Winfrey, Warren Buffett. They work hard, yes. But do you know what else they prioritize? Their energy, their clarity, their health. Steve Jobs was famous for taking long walks to clear his mind and make important decisions. Bill Gates sets aside time to read, reflect, and think. Even the busiest CEOs in the world understand this. If you don't take care of yourself, nothing else matters. Yet most of us treat self-care as a luxury, not a necessity. We tell ourselves, I don't have time to rest. We skip meals, run on caffeine, and sacrifice sleep for productivity. We convince ourselves that slowing down is weakness. But here's something to think about. If you don't make time for your wellness, you'll be forced to make time for your illness. The Buddhist perspective on balance. Buddhism teaches the concept of the middle way, the idea that life isn't about extremes but about balance. Too much indulgence? You lose discipline. Too much deprivation? You lose joy. Your body is not a machine. It's not designed to function on stress, overwork, and neglect. And your mind? It needs just as much care. But here's the problem. We live in a world that glorifies busyness. We celebrate the person who works late, who grinds through exhaustion, who never takes a break. We equate rest with laziness, self-care with selfishness. But what if we changed that? What if we saw taking care of ourselves as an investment, not a distraction? The story of the lumberjack. There's an old story about a young lumberjack who was determined to prove himself. He worked harder than anyone, swinging his axe from sunrise to sunset. Meanwhile, an older lumberjack worked fewer hours and seemed to cut down just as many trees. Frustrated, the young lumberjack asked, "How do you do it? I work twice as hard, but you get the same results." The older man smiled and said, "Because I take breaks to sharpen my axe." The young lumberjack looked down at his own axe. It was dull, worn from overuse, and far less effective than when he had started. And that's exactly what happens when we neglect our well-being. You can push yourself harder and harder, but if you never stop to sharpen your axe, eventually your efforts become less effective. Signs you're neglecting your body and mind. Burnout doesn't just happen to people in high-pressure jobs. It happens to parents, students, caregivers, anyone who gives more than they receive. Here are some warning signs. You're constantly exhausted, even after resting. Your mind feels foggy, and simple decisions feel overwhelming. You've lost interest in things you once enjoyed. You're always irritated, even over small things. You feel detached, like you're just going through the motions. Sound familiar? If so, it's time to recharge, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. How to reconnect with yourself. You don't need a complete life overhaul. Small, intentional habits can make a huge difference. 1. Set a daily recharge ritual. This doesn't have to be complicated. Just 10 to 15 minutes a day where you pause, reset, and take care of yourself. Some ideas: a short meditation or deep breathing exercise, a quiet walk in nature, journaling your thoughts and emotions, listening to calming music without distractions. Make it something just for you. A moment to sharpen your axe. 2. Protect your energy like it's your most valuable asset, because it is. Start setting boundaries. Say no to things that drain you. Step away from toxic people. Take breaks when you need them. Without guilt. Energy is like money. Spend it wisely. 3. Move your body. Feed your mind. Your body wasn't designed to sit all day, and your mind wasn't designed to be overstimulated 24/7. Move. Stretch, walk, dance, do yoga. Anything to keep your body in motion. Eat well. Fuel yourself with foods that nourish, not deplete. Disconnect. Take a break from screens and social media. If you treat your body well, it will thank you. 4. Practice self-compassion. You are not a machine. You are allowed to rest. Give yourself permission to slow down, to breathe, to exist without the pressure to be constantly productive. Because taking care of yourself is not selfish. It's necessary. A final thought. What if you made yourself a priority? If you keep waiting for the right time to take care of yourself, it will never come. So what if, starting today, you made your well-being just as important as your to-do list? Because at the end of the day, success means nothing if you're too exhausted to enjoy it. Your body and mind are the only home you'll ever have. So take care of them before it's too late. Take a deep breath. Let go. Let go of the need to be everything for everyone. Let go of the fear that saying no makes you unkind. Let go of the belief that your worth is measured by others' approval. You are not here to be a mirror for everyone else's expectations. You are here to live fully, love deeply, and honor your own truth. So, as we wrap up today's journey, I leave you with this question. If you weren't afraid of disappointing others, what would you do differently? Reflect on that and when you're ready, take action. If this message resonated with you, help spread this wisdom by liking, commenting, and sharing this video. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to Lotus Light Teachings for more insights on mindful living. Remember, the only approval you ever truly need is your own. Be kind to yourself. Be free. Sparkles, until next time, keep shining your inner light. Sparkles.